Darshan, you got to get back on X, man. You know, X, when I've been doing these live streams,
Is it working well?
X is doing the same amount of views as LinkedIn.
Kidding me. Oh,
Yep.
maybe I need to.
You need
I
to get
might need
back.
to
This
do.
is where we met
Yeah,
originally, and I feel like you have to come back.
I feel like I need to because I feel like there was a buzz downward trend with X, and then Facebook tried to do it, and
Mhm.
now I feel like Facebook's Threads is not really doing much, and now we're
Oh,
back to like
not
X.
doing much is like very generous. I mean, yeah, that's dead. No one's using Threads.
All I know is it keeps making Instagram just more painful. Like, please
Yes.
join Threads. I don't really want to.
Yeah, we're okay. We don't need more threads. We're on Instagram to look at pictures, to look
Exactly.
at people's magazine versions of themselves, and we're on LinkedIn for business, and
Yep.
we're on X for everything, really. Like mess
Really?
around, research. Yeah, X is like, and I use the AI. So this topic's a little bit about AI, but I pay
Yeah.
the premium Twitter or X, so
Do you like?
I
Is it?
get
It's called Grokster, right?
Grok,
Grok. So
Grokster, same thing, but
remind me of
Grok.
Napster, but sure.
Grok's pretty cool. Grok has
Really?
the funny mode by default,
Oh.
but
Okay.
you could switch it to regular mode. So I found it's maybe for me better than ChatGPT because in a way, it's smarter. Like it knows how to continue from the previous prompt better, like
Interesting.
more seamless. And then the more people use X, the more data it actually gets like from there. Like so in the future that like AI is a commodity, right? Like it's a race downhill, it's a deflationary force, all that stuff eventually is going to be free. I mean, it's already free for users. Like the value will be the user generated content, the human generated content, I should say, that's proprietary,
But
right?
how
Like,
much human? We. This is exactly what we got to talk about, right?
yeah, that's why we're doing Fraud Pod. I mean, Fraud Pod's good. Do you want to explain what Fraud Pod actually is?
Sure. So the way this started was Dan and I have been doing this podcast. Like we've been doing our own podcast since like '09 or '08 or something.
Jeez,
And
man.
we always sort of got together and talked and stuff like that. And the last couple of years, uh I was like, "Oh, Dan, we should talk about this case that came up." He's like, "Sure, let's talk about it." And people were really interested in that case. And we were like, "Okay, and what should we call it?" And people really went for Fraud Pod. Like that was a name like people really latched onto. And Dan and I were like, "Oh, we should just call it Fraud Pod." Originally we thought we'd do our own podcast on it called Fraud Pod, and we might still do that. But the idea is that right now both of us are still doing our thing and using a hashtag Fraud Pod, and that's connecting us anyways.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well, like, I do another one, Guru Nation After Dark, or we go
ooh,
live like at midnight. That does surprisingly
midnight
well.
whose time though?
Midnight someone's time. I mean, it's usually
4 p.m.
9 p.m. Pacific, and
Okay,
it ends up being midnight on the East Coast, and
there you go.
it's that one does surprisingly well, man. All the job seekers are out there,
Yeah.
anxious, and
What do you think of the job seek? Like right now, I feel like everyone's looking for a job.
everyone not at a site is looking for a job.
It's funny. I was actually just I have a connection who's actually looking to hire someone as a coordinator for his site. And I
Hmm.
actually put it on LinkedIn yesterday saying if anyone's looking for a job in the Dallas Fort Worth area,
Ooh,
reach out
love
to
that
me.
area.
Have you
Love
been?
Dallas. Oh yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
But one of the things we were so that's where Fraud Pod came from.
Hmm.
But while it started off with being about cases that have already happened, one of the things we also talk about is things that might happen. That's where
Right.
AI comes in. Everyone and his brother and his sister and his mother are all talking about AI.
I
The
want to do
question is, how
AI.
much is hype? What's up?
Okay, let's get to AI, but first, I just remembered. I got a text
Okay.
yesterday. It's it's for Darshan.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Um, hey Dan, sorry to message you so late. I came across your YouTube. I have a very specific case going on, and I feel like you'd have more knowledge on what steps I need to take since you have a lot of knowledge about research. Well,
There you go. There's a man.
I'm not the person for this, but I've been saving it. Um, I was made aware by former coworkers, so this is a person that used to work at a site, that my former boss slash lead CRC is using my name to sign off on a specific study. I didn't think it would be this hard to actually report and take legal action against them. A lot of people have no clue about research. I spoke to several other people. They told me to contact the sponsor, but the number I had was a patient number. Like they don't have anything anymore. They're not at the site. I'm now trying to contact the FDA that oversees clinical trials to make them aware of this. I'm a former research assistant and was formerly an unblinded pharmacist on two of their studies in 2018 and 2019. I haven't been employed by them since 2019. I don't know the sponsor. My former coworkers are afraid to release more details about like such a sponsor and protocol number. I told her, "Do you remember the IRB?" They said no. I don't have any access to anything. But let's just say I'm not surprised given the character of these coordinators over there. I made a specific complaint with the FDA regulated clinical trial, some biologics studies, like FDA.hhs.gov, Division of Communication and Consumer Affairs.
You'd have to look
And
into that a
yeah,
little
so what
bit
do you
more.
think?
So a few things pop up in mind, right? So first of all, I think people talk and then some people are right, some people are wrong. So
Mhm.
again, just to be clear, we're not giving legal advice. We don't know the details
It's
of this specific situation. Yeah.
flashing on the screen.
Right, right, right. But the big thing is we don't know enough details. I wonder if they're actually doing it. You might not be surprised, but for someone who hasn't worked there and at this point 5 years,
Mhm.
if I was auditing the facility, I'd go, I want to talk to this person, find out more.
Yeah,
And the fact that that hasn't popped up in 5 years says something. So I wonder if it's actually accurate. Is the first thing I'm thinking.
yeah, yeah.
Let's assume it's accurate now. Let's assume that that's the scenario. Then the question becomes, who are you reporting? Are you reporting the coordinator? Or are you reporting the IT people? Or are you reporting the owner? So the coordinator apparently is the one using this pharmacist's name.
Right, the boss. She did say boss.
But
So
that's what, but I don't know how the reporting structure worked.
right, it's probably the lead CRC that is in charge of
Could have been
everyone. Yeah.
unusual because pharmacists don't usually report to CRCs, but it's possible. Nothing
Unblinded
to
ones
stop it.
do though at smaller sites. And she
But
mentioned the site, but I'm not gonna do that.
yeah, fair enough. That's a different conversation.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
the point being, in that situation, the next question: pharmacists don't usually work at smaller sites, which is why this is an unusual situation. But there's more to the story, and
So unblinded pharmacist could be anyone. I've been an unblinded pharmacist. It's just someone who doesn't can't do anything else with that study. They're just mixing the drug because by actually seeing it, you can tell if it's the drug or
so then
placebo.
are they the pharmacist? So you've got to be careful of the word pharmacist.
Right,
It's a
they're called
licensed term.
pharmacists by sponsors. Like your site needs an unblinded pharmacist, but it doesn't actually mean like a certified pharmacist.
Okay, a licensed pharmacist.
Right,
So
right.
again, number one, I would be very careful. Are they qualified to do that? Because when you're talking about a smaller site, you're
Yeah,
dispensing. I wouldn't necessarily use the term pharmacist. I would
right.
be very worried about something like that because it has legal meaning.
Yeah,
And you're,
sponsors are dumb in that regard.
yeah. It might also go to the fact that your delegation log should probably refer to them as a pharmacist. Is the other part of it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You could call them. You couldn't call them a nurse. You might want to come up with a different term
Well,
in
like
that situation.
it's a commonly used phrase for sites with unblinded components
I
where
mean, I've been an unblind pharmacist, right? So I've
well,
worked
you are a
on.
pharmacist. No,
I
no,
am
but
a
like
pharmacist.
so we just had a study, my site, where the sponsor said, "Hey, you need an unblinded pharmacist. This is anyone that the PI delegates, doesn't have to be a pharmacist, to do nothing but the IP for that study."
Sure.
And we call
Like,
them a unblinded pharmacist. So the PI chose a medical assistant to do this.
so number one, I wouldn't call them a pharmacist. I'd probably call them a dispenser or something like that. Number two,
Yeah,
because it has legal meaning.
yeah,
Uh, um, and the next question becomes: so let's assume that this person is and have very specific rules around because
mhm,
I've actually gotten audited pharmacies that were engaged in blinding and unblinding studies on unblinded pharmacists and blah blah blah.
Mhm.
Like I said, I've even been an unblinded pharmacist, my own individual capacity with a license. And there are rules and rules and rules on how to do it right. I
So
spent like
let's say
3 days
you're
on site. Yeah,
let's this is actually a good topic. So let's say that you are a site like I am
yeah.
that gets a study and the sponsor uses this term. And you're like, "All right, we do have one, but do we just change the name
Yeah,
or
yeah,
I
sure.
mean,
Why
the
not?
sponsor's referring to them the whole study duration and emails and everything as unblinded pharmacist."
I would clarify that for legal reasons, we can't call them an unblinded pharmacist.
Okay,
Uh, but this person is in charge of dispensing the product.
okay. So
Um,
unblinded IP
dispenser, yeah, exactly. Something
admin or something.
correct. There you go. Something like that really
Okay,
gives you a little bit more wiggle room.
okay.
But in either scenario, you've got to make sure that they have policies, procedures, everything else in place, because you'd be surprised how many things can go wrong. I'll give you an
Yeah,
example. Is the medication supposed to be refrigerated? If
right,
it is, how do you make sure that the refrigeration is happening at the right time? Is the medication stored in a secure area? How do you know, for example, that it's not being stored in the same fridge as like your food, which more often than not it is. I've gone to so many sites and your food and your medication stored next to each other. That's cross contamination. You put the product in one location, you check the temperature at another. Well, does that temperature really reflect the temperature that your product is experiencing? So if you have an AC blowing, and I've seen this happen, the AC blows directly onto the medication, but the temperature is there.
right.
Well, how do you trust it? How often are you checking your temperature logs? You're talking about a controlled substance. In those situations, how are you controlling access? You often
Right.
need to be behind 2 levels of secured access.
Mhm.
Um, blah 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 blah.
There's a lot with IP that I
Yeah,
think
it's one of the top 5 findings from the FDA.
really.
Yeah,
We like to me, we're in the desert, that was a good song, intro song. But in the summer obviously it gets really hot
right.
and we it's not uncommon for like refrigerated IP to go through temperature excursions.
Exactly right.
Um
And how do you
and
know it's not been denatured in any way?
right, so we have these temp sticks they're called. I wish
Yeah,
we were sponsored by them, maybe one day. Uh it's continuous, you can do every 15 minutes you can get a
but
temperature
here's my
reading.
question. Number one, so there are different temp sticks. I've actually seen the temp sticks, right? So that's not a big issue.
Mhm.
But the problem you have is number one, who does it notify? Number two, what do they do in reference to the temp stick? Number three, how do you know if the temp stick was validated? Just because you have a temp stick doesn't mean the temp stick is validated.
What was number 2?
I don't know what I said.
So number
How
1
often do you
is
get notified? I think it was the
oh,
other
we
one.
get notified as soon as you can set it up whenever there's an
With an
excursion.
excursion, correct. You will
The
set up the temperature
me
variation you
Yeah,
allow
the
for.
site director and then all the CRCs.
But that means that you're only getting notified during an excursion,
Correct.
not. So you can also set it up to send you a log or to send you a notification daily on the temperature as well.
You get a log anytime you want,
Correct. But the
but you don't
question
want,
then
like
becomes,
you don't
how
want
do you
alerts.
trust? How do you trust the temp stick? Like, how do you know that
Calibration
it's
is
doing?
yearly calibrated.
And
It's
that's
in
the
our
point.
it's in our SOP.
There you go. So you've got to be calibrating it the whole time,
Of
and
course,
you've got to be testing the calibration on a routine basis.
yearly. Yeah, for us, it's yearly.
And I'm not saying it is or it isn't, but make sure that that's adequate for what you're doing. It may completely
Right,
be adequate.
right.
But those are the things, and I know a lot of people don't. I know large hospitals that don't do that. They're surprised that that's
Yeah,
something they should
yeah.
be doing.
I mean, research usually takes stricter precautions on these things than standard of care
Correct.
facilities.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I again, I've worked in multiple standard of care facilities. Most people don't even know that that's something they should be doing. They
Mhm.
just have a log in there and they'll get a notification every so often.
And
They're like,
most private
yeah,
practice, most doctors' offices that don't do
correct.
research, they
Yeah,
keep their samples in like a janitor closet
I
next to
know. I've been
Clorox,
there.
next to like Lysol, Fabuloso.
Exactly.
So cross contamination right there. Not to
Yep.
mention, a little odd to keep medicine next to like Fabuloso. But
I don't know what fabuloso is.
because you have a maid and all that. This is like
I do
for
not have a
people that
maid.
clean their own homes, Darshan, this is a thing where like you have to
It's
mop.
it's called Lysol. I don't know what a fabuloso is.
It's like a cleaning solution for the where
Okay.
it's a mop, you dilute it with water and then you mop.
Yeah, see, I have wood floors. I'm not mopping anything on these wood floors.
I used to have that was my old house. Yeah, yeah. Shout
I,
out to
I'm
the Latinos in Clinker Research. Everyone knows what's fabuloso.
cultural differences, Dan.
I don't
This
even
is a
know what
California
the
thing.
I don't even know what the American equivalent actually is. Wow.
Like
Jeez.
Dan suddenly breaks out into like hardcore Spanish right now, going, "It's fabuloso. We all know what it is. I don't know why you don't know this."
Working on it. And I think in a year I can do a pod in Spanish, entire pod.
Really?
I did like a 7-minute interview in Spanish, but the guest was doing most of the talking.
Oh yeah. As long as you didn't ask questions about like sports, I'm sure you were okay. Because last time you did that to me, I
Oh
I
yeah.
did this
Yeah.
smile and nod.
Well, you're a Philadelphia guy, so you're expected to know Allen Iverson. I
But that's
mean,
the only guy I knew.
okay. Well, he's the only one you really well, now they have these. Yeah. Yeah, he's still the only guy worthy of knowing from Philly. From
How
six
dare you? How dare you? How about the Kelseys?
No. They have a good
What?
podcast.
They do. They do have a good podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. I know very, very little. So I want to clarify for anyone who knows anything about football. I admit I know very little.
Right.
Having said that, one of the Kelsey brothers is dating Taylor Swift, which means that he matters, and the other one just retired, so he did matter. And they were both in the Super Bowl, the only two brothers to do it. So you know what? You got to give it to them.
Of course, and they're super intelligent. Want to
I have,
extend their brand beyond football and do the
yeah.
podcast. I mean,
That's
that's
a
super
weird
cool.
place to go, don't you think? I mean, like you and I do it as small business owners. I feel like if you are a football player, I feel like you have huge places. Like you should be on like NBC growing your brand.
No, no.
No,
Those are
is
losing. No one watches that anymore, first of
you
all.
think?
Yeah, who
You
watches?
think podcasts are the new TV?
Yeah. What do you watch mostly, listen to? I mean, you're not an outlier in this
I actually watch
situation.
TV mostly. I have
Seriously?
like 9 different streaming channels.
Oh, okay. Like you watch actual TV?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Huh.
You don't?
No.
So interesting.
I mean, we have YouTube TV, but I rarely watch it. I
I
watch
don't
Curb
watch
Your
YouTube TV. I just
Enthusiasm.
have YouTube. I have the
I
paid
like
version of YouTube.
Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Oh, that's a good one. It's a good
Yeah,
one.
it's one of my favorites, and yeah, no. I mean, podcast, this is what people consume.
I'm curious from the audience for those people who are listening. Do you guys actually watch TV or are you guys watching like podcasts? Am
Well,
I
we
just
get some,
old?
we get, what is it called? Sample bias because everyone's like watching a live stream on X and
But I
LinkedIn.
don't know if it's sample bias because you could be watching both. And let's be honest, Dan Safara is must-watch TV.
Come on, only with Darshan. So, anyways, back to this person before we move on to AI.
Right.
What can they
So
do? Like, I also think it's a little weird. Like, but here's from a practical site owner.
we have a comment.
Oh yeah, Ashley
Ashley,
Margot says TV at night, podcast during the day.
interesting.
Interesting. I mean, I'll watch things on my TV, but it's not TV.
Oh no,
Like,
I'm watching TV on my TV. I have a big screen like TV downstairs, like a projector that I
yeah,
love watching things on. I don't go to the movies anymore. I used 2 years ago, or at least pre-COVID, I would watch a movie every single night in the theater because I had one of those the passes that they had
yeah.
for $30.
Oh,
Watch as
okay.
so I used
That's
to do
awesome.
that, and I'd have all the subscription channels. I'd watch everything on all of them.
Wow.
But yeah, now I think I don't need to go to the main screen, so I have one downstairs and I enjoy it. But
Well,
podcast throughout the day. Huh.
podcast throughout the day. So let me break down so we can move to AI.
Yeah, yeah,
What
yeah.
this person. Okay, so it is a small site because I know the site. I don't know
Sure.
the site, but I actually looked it up yesterday, and they're like they're basically like Yuma Clinical Trials. Um, so they probably have like a long-term study
Hmm.
that started in like 18 or 19, like this person
Sure.
said, that's going on. It's in maintenance mode right
Yeah,
now,
yeah, yeah.
5 years later.
Yeah.
They didn't have the staff when this person left. Here's what I think is happening. When this
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
person left, probably on bad terms,
Hmm.
sounds like there's
Sure.
more here than just I don't
Yeah.
want my name being used.
Right.
The lead CRC was like, "Yeah, it doesn't make sense to put someone else on it. I'll just do it and sign off as them." You know, and who cares? Nobody cares. Like the unblinded pharmacist monitor probably does it remote now, and it's just send us the logs and we'll and all that stuff. So that's probably, I would think, what's going on, because it's very easy to do this.
Right. So, a couple of different responses. So, number one, think of our friend Sami Anwar.
That dude got so. By the way, he was a LinkedIn connection.
Was he really?
Yeah, people thought I was like involved with him somehow. They're like, "Well," I was like, "No, I don't even know who that is." "Oh, you're connected with him on LinkedIn." Okay, well, let
I'm
me
connected to a lot of
block
people on
let
LinkedIn.
me block him now. Yeah. I don't know 90% of the people that are my
Oh yeah,
connections on
easy.
LinkedIn.
Um, so let's address that question first of all, right? So, number one, I think that that's fraudulent. If they are, let's assume all the facts are true the way they're sort of presented, and as you're presenting them.
Yeah.
Um, I would say number one, there are you'd have to find exactly who at the FDA's office you'd report to. I don't think it's just consumer affairs. There are probably better places to go.
Mhm.
That's number one. Number two, depending on how the billing's done, OIG might be a really good place to report to. Number three,
What's OIG?
um,
Office of
Office Inspector General. Sorry,
Okay.
Office Inspector General. You can also go to the DOJ and point out that this is happening, which is
That
clinical
one
trial
we do
fraud
know.
is one of their number one areas of that they're trying to address right now.
Department of Justice.
Department of Justice. Sorry, I keep throwing these out because these are words I use all the time,
Oh,
but I
yeah.
appreciate you clarifying, Dan.
Yes.
Um, so DOJ is looking at these issues right now. It's one of four top areas they've been focusing on since 2021, and you're seeing a bunch of court cases come out where they're doing settling and going after people in clinical research.
Yeah.
So that's continuing. Um, I think the sponsor may want to know, but the question is, who would the sponsor? But I think that there's a certain there are two different things that are going on, right? So first is do should they tell people, and the second thing is does it matter? So from a should they tell people from
Who's
patient
they?
safety,
Who's they?
they being this pharmacist, for lack of a better term,
Oh,
uh,
the former employee.
the former employee. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay.
So the former employee, should they tell people from a patient safety standpoint, from a fraud standpoint, that all makes sense, and that's great. But will something come back and bite them? I would say on the list of things, it's a lower risk because number one, they don't have confirmation. Number two, they have nothing to do with it. Number three, like if they keep a paper trail of you trying to notify people saying, "Hey, stop using my name if you're using it." So that way, you're going and you're very clear that I heard about this. I want this
Ah.
stuff to stop, and then the liability is minimized because what else can you do?
So she should do a certified letter with a return.
Or an email. I mean, I don't. I mean, you can
Oh,
do certified letter and all that stuff, but you're just trying to keep a paper trail going. Look,
okay.
I heard this. I don't know if it's true. If it
Yeah.
is true, I want you to know. Don't do it.
So
If it's,
that covers her.
I mean, to the extent it
And
can be covered. I don't know. I don't know if I ever told you this. I used to clerk for a federal court judge, and during that time, uh, we'd get these petitions, these complaints, and one of the complaints was from a dude, from a homeless guy who was suing the president of the United States, Batman, Superman, and like someone else because he wasn't allowed to use like a Wells Fargo bathroom. So the point is, anyone can sue for anything. Like just because they can sue, the likelihood of you succeeding is not super high.
a
So
lawyer
this
took that case.
was no, it's what's called pro se, which means that I'm filing on behalf of myself. I don't have a lawyer.
Oh, I mean, no chance. Okay,
Well,
sure.
I don't know. I feel like Batman could have really like responded to this. So
So a judge wasted their time, like
the
listening
clerks
to this.
did. I mean, we were the
Oh,
clerks.
okay, okay, all right.
But the thing is that those things are easy to throw out, right? Because you can
Sure.
throw out like there's no way for Batman and Superman to answer.
Mm-hmm.
President of the United States, like there have been some cases where it's going back 15 years, but you even though you know this is idiotic, you can't just throw the case out because you have to go with the worst case scenario. What if everything they're saying is true?
Mm-hmm.
So there are two different big steps in litigation. There's the motion to dismiss, and there's the motion for summary judgment before the actual trial itself. The motion to dismiss is like super early on, and it's when someone files a complaint, the other side can file a motion to dismiss. We're doing like a totally different conversation right now, but for those
No, no,
people who are
we'll get
interested,
back to AI. Yeah.
yeah. In the motion to dismiss stage, what's really, and I'm not a litigator, just to be clear, but this is what I remember from when we were doing this in federal court. The motion to dismiss is even if everything you said is true, every single thing you said is true, I still can't give you the relief you wanted because either you're statutorily barred. So let's say you're coming in 30 years after the fact for a contract dispute. Well, you're statutorily barred. Those contract disputes can only be brought in that specific instance for like 2 years after the situation. You've come back too late. So even if they really did screw you over, you can't bring it in right now. Or you are suing Batman, who's not an entity that can be sued. Those types of things get statutorily barred, can be thrown out of motion to dismiss.
I see.
Now, if there's a question where, there's just that is really more of a, there's no case to be made. Then there's the motion to dismiss stage. Sorry, the motion for summary judgment stage. And that's generally when all the facts are in your favor. Even if the facts are exactly what you say they are, no reasonable jury would go in your direction. And again, going back, I'm sure the standards have changed and the like. But and I may be misremembering things, but generally speaking, that's the motion of summary judgment. So you've done the depositions, you've spoken to people, you've got all the information. There's no reasonable jury that would still vote in your favor. So we're not going to take it to trial. We're going to settle this. So the judge will throw out different elements from your complaint, going, "This is not going to work. This is not going to work." Because a lot of when you're filing a complaint, you will have like 2 charges that are likely to succeed, 2 that are bullshit charges, and like 1 that is, you know what, I don't even know why I'm throwing it in here, but it's going to be something I negotiate with.
Okay.
So that's the thought process often complaints.
Okay. So as far as this person is concerned,
Going back, yes.
like they
Going
should
back,
just contact DOJ and that's it, and send an email, cover your ass.
send an email to the person going, "Hey, I don't know if this is happening. If it is, I want you guys to stop because I don't work for you. I haven't worked for you in forever."
Yeah.
I'm not going to say who it came from, any of that stuff, because you don't want to be involved in like blaming the wrong people.
Yeah.
Because you don't want like defamatory claims being made against you. You're just saying, "I heard. This is what I heard. I want you to stop it." End of the story.
And
Again,
sometimes these things are exaggerated, right? Like
exactly. They
you
often
don't
get
know if
exaggerated.
there's like emotional response to something else that they're not
Correct.
telling us.
Yeah.
Like maybe they just didn't take them off the DOA log,
Correct.
and
And that
she's
might be as
interpreting
simple
it
as that.
as they're signing off on her. Like,
Right.
because
Maybe
I
they're
know
just
this.
using pre-printed logs that have existed forever. There's not much happening.
Yeah,
Your name's still on there, but you've been taken off, and that's possible as well, right?
yeah, and like if I were the site owner, I wouldn't. It doesn't cost much to add an unblinded pharmacist. I mean, you usually
Right.
just add, even though you don't like calling it that,
Yeah, I
you,
see what
you
you're saying
just
though.
add like a MA at the site,
Right.
and then you can even help them unofficially help them do the logs. Uh, I mean, you don't need to go out of your way to commit fraud, and I think
Right.
any site that does that is pretty
Seems
stupid.
unnecessary.
Yeah, it's.
You just delegate it to someone else. Like, why would you bother?
But you never know. This is Fraud Pod, and we got a lot of nuggets out of that from you. Like,
Yeah, the last time
honestly,
we did that was we did a bunch of them. We should probably start doing individual cases the next time we do one of these.
sure. But you wanted to
Um
talk about AI because
that's
that's
in everyone's
popping right
minds,
now.
right? So
Yeah.
I presented at a conference for DIA probably about 15 days ago.
You still go to
Uh,
those things? DIA and all
so
that?
I kind of stopped for a while in the middle.
Yeah.
DIA, I actually helped set up the
You need to come to save our sites, man. And then next year
that
you
was the
gotta
only one because I actually helped set that one up, so I had to do that.
uh,
I haven't done any others. I usually tend to do them in Philly because it saves my travel costs. But outside that, SOS is on my. It might become my only exception next year.
okay, okay. Me too.
Um,
Me too. We're in the same camp.
right. Well, first of all, I heard great things about SOS. First of all,
Thank you.
number two, my friends are already there. You guys are there. Brad's there. Like, it's kind of great to see friends that I've known. So there are good reasons to go. The bad reasons is cash flow and all those things any small business owner goes through.
Yeah.
Um, Speaking of, I don't how how has business been for you guys as sites?
As sites, really good.
Really? Okay.
Well, it's gonna be year 3 of the site at the end of the year.
Hmm.
So it's like yeah, I mean, we're beyond profitable. We've been profitable for the last year, I would say.
Nice.
Getting new site selection visits, have 5 specialists, so that's helpful that are diverse, like across different therapeutic
Yeah, yeah,
areas.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're not nowhere near the ceiling of what we can do. Some of the specialists I don't even have any studies for right now because they're new. So it's just I'm gonna need more staff soon and building out the systems and revising the SOPs, especially after our last fraud pod. Me and Katie revised the SOP. I actually have to sign off on them today. Thank you for
Okay.
reminding me.
There you go.
Because a lot of our SOP were outdated and we technically weren't following every aspect of it because it was ancient. So we revised it. So
And
now we're
that's the point. I think you're supposed to keep going back and auditing yourself.
yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with finding mistakes. This is the big thing I would say to people.
Mhm.
Everyone thinks that finding mistakes is a bad thing. The idea is that you do find mistakes. It tells you that your system is working.
Right.
The Not finding them is the problem. You
Right.
should be in a continuous state of improvement. Now, if
Right.
you're finding fraud, that has its own issues.
Well,
But
yeah. We
but
haven't
the
done that.
right.
But
But you
business
know
is
what?
great though.
We
Yeah.
we want to do this, but we're doing this. It's time to reconcile. We want to do this, but we're doing this. Time to reconcile. That's what your quality system should be doing.
Mhm.
Ideally speaking, you're the person in charge of quality shouldn't be the person doing the work because you want
Correct.
someone who's
Correct.
unbiased.
We have
Um,
QA, like I said in the last fraud pod. I mean, that one actually helped me improve a lot of aspects of our business. So we have the QA people now. They're sending formal reports every week. Um, we actually found something on there that we could fix before the monitor comes, and thankfully we were not out of compliance, but we might have been if they didn't bring this to our attention.
Here's a
So
question.
it was thank you for that fraud pod, by the way.
Of course, that's why we do these, right? To help not just Dan, but to help everyone else who's listening,
By
and
the way,
hopefully they
X
get a little
is
nugget.
blowing up. X, we have
Really?
69 live viewers right now, so thank you, X. I
Wow.
appreciate that.
Wow. You know what? I'm
LinkedIn
gonna
is
have to move.
LinkedIn's only like, I don't know, like 12?
Okay, I'm gonna try to switch.
I think the LinkedIn algorithms, like, doesn't favor the lives anymore like they used to. They
Yeah, I'm
always
gonna
play with their
try to
algorithm.
switch. Uh,
Yeah, I need you back on X. A lot of this is just my argument to get you back on X. But how's business for you, though?
so last year was decent, but I could see things slowing down. So I had like 4 clients who were on retainer. They all got bought out, which is great for them.
Like
And I'm really happy for
small
them.
pharma or what were they?
Let's see. One was a hospital, one was a medical device company, one was a law firm who was hiring me.
Wow.
One was a tech company.
Wow.
Um, so
Congrats.
across the board. But one of them got bought out. The other ones we moved away from retainer model. And then well, 3 of them got bought out. One moved to a retainer model. And the idea was now we're back into starting up from scratch, which is always good. It's always good, but it's always terrifying because you go, "Am I doing this right?" Luckily, things are still flowing. Things are doing well. They're going to pick back up. But it as good as last year, the year before that. Oh my God, no! Those years were crazy for me. It
The
was awesome.
pandemic years?
Yeah, the pandemic years. So it's a growth phase again, readjusting, trying to get into new spaces. I'm actually looking at, I think you and I have discussed the tech that I'm trying to bring as well. So that should
Oh,
be
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, I forgot about that actually.
Yeah. Um, and sort of connecting. I'm trying to digging deeper into some of the podcasting stuff we're doing to see if, with the use of AI, I realized that I had about 50, 60, 70 topics that I'd never get to because there's no means to do it. And I don't have the time to write it all out. So AI helps me write out a first draft and I edit it and review it and update it and modify it and blah, blah, blah. And that's been a great way to put out content and to put out sort of things that I've been meaning to talk about. For example, um, this might become a whole conversation about the how should a pharmacist be referred to if you're not a pharmacist in clinical research. I've been thinking about doing maybe like a training system for like how do you negotiate a clinical trial agreement? Because I feel like a lot of people reach out and ask those questions, and just having that ready for people. I'd be curious to see if people are interested in something like that, but simplify that. So, is there a difference between, say, doing a live in-person training versus having these pre-recorded, augmented with additional conversations? The why the publication one matters, what are some variations of it, why you should do it in one way versus another, and what are the considerations, and sort of take each paragraph and sort of negotiate and talk about it. So we'll see how that plays out.
Okay.
But it's kind of been exciting and interesting. So
Do you think the business will, like for life science in general, because it's hard for people right now, not at the site level,
hmm,
like I'm talking CRO and sponsor level. It's
yeah,
hard to, I think it's hard to find a job in those type of organizations today.
right right now there've been a bunch of layoffs. So
At where at CRO and pharma.
yeah, CRO and
Yeah,
pharma level. I think I was talking to someone yesterday, and they said something like they've been tracking 160 companies doing layoffs
yeah.
in the area. So I was like, that is interesting. So I think the term for it right now is right sizing, where they're going, we overhired.
Right
Um,
sizing. Well,
yeah.
the people getting laid off, it's not right. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, the difference between people versus profits, and that's what's happening, right? So, but sometimes, again, as a business owner, and you know this as a small business owner, for the business to survive, for you to be able to feed your kids, sometimes you just have to make the really hard decision.
Yeah, I've had to make layoffs before. I've had to fire people. Right now,
Yeah,
we're overstaffed on purpose, and
right,
but we are we can afford it. Like we're still
right,
growing, so
right, right,
we're in a different stage as a startup research site. I think the
right.
sites are still busy for the most part.
So here's another thing to think about, and I've been talking to some other one of my site clients about this right now. They're one of the smaller sites. One of I feel like there's an inflection point that sites don't know about. So I have a client who is looking to possibly sell. And what's interesting is that he's in a really good spot, but the entire business depends on him. And if you are ever going to
Mm.
be in a situation where you're going to sell, the company that's going to try to buy you wants to know what happens when you leave. Because if the entire business depends
Yeah.
on you, uh,
Oh man.
right,
I've been told to make a video, and it's on my list. Top 10 books I've read and recommend for site owners.
right.
And one of them, after this one, I mean, I'll shamelessly promo the hell out of this. This is number 1. This is number 1 through 10, all right, in my humble opinion.
What's number 11?
Um, Probably something religious.
Really
Yeah,
interesting. I didn't see you as a religious guy. Good to know.
philosophically religious, spiritual.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I didn't
Number
see you as a
1,
Deepak Chopra guy either.
there's one called, there's one I'm listening to. This won't make the list though, but, top 10, there's one I'm listening to called Radical Acceptance.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty good, but it's the opposite of getting you pumped up in the morning, so, I don't
Calm you
listen
down.
to it that often. Okay, check it out, what I was gonna say, related to what you said. Number 2 on that list, it really should be number 1, but I'm cheating with my book. The E-Myth, alright? The E-Myth.
Never heard of
The
that.
it's you probably don't need it, but it's all about building systems. It was written,
Yes.
like, in the '90s. He writes about how McDonald's is like if you own a McDonald's, you're not flipping the burgers and ordering the food, and you should be just working on your business, not in your business. And I read this book in '05 when I started my site. Thank God I did, because I understood from early on that your business should operate independently of yourself. And if you
That's
can't,
the E Myth.
this is the E Myth revisited. This is the one I have. I highly recommend this for any site owner, including your client or whomever it is that you're talking to.
And I think that's the point I was making to him. I think you need to
Mhm.
you when you go away, and I'm going to take this off the screen. Uh,
Okay. Highly
um,
recommend. Stay tuned for my video soon on top 10 books. I'm still figuring out the list.
okay, can you take this off the screen? Oh,
Oh, yeah.
there you
The
go.
E Myth. Highly recommend.
I think the point I was making, and it's the same point you're making, which is you've got to develop systems. Early on in your growth stage, you have to figure out all the stuff that's missing, and you've got to figure out what works, what doesn't work, all that good stuff. But then eventually, you got to move away from yourself. How do you make it not about you? Especially because when you are selling and you're ready to sell, it's often because of two things. Number one, you want the money, or you don't want the headaches. If you want the money, you are gonna have to actually go, I want the money up front. Otherwise, they're gonna say, you know what, I'm not gonna pay you as much up front because I want to see that the systems work.
Right.
And what you deal with at that point is this idea of, well, I need to put systems in. Alternatively, if you don't want the headaches, the only way you take the headaches off your plate is by having
Off your
systems.
head.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I can't repeat that.
No, exactly right. And a lot of site owners are operating like Subway sandwich store owners, where
Yeah,
the owner's making the sandwiches and doesn't
correct.
want to hire help and mops the floors. We using
Yeah.
Fabuloso probably. Um, you
Dude, you
know,
need to get sponsored by Fabuloso.
oh man, it would be a dream come true. More so for my wife, but yeah, a dream come true. That'd be
Is
cool.
it more of a dream for your wife if you're you the one using the Fabuloso?
Oh yeah, I mean that's like a very idealistic dream of hers. I'll do it every now and then though.
Yeah.
So yeah, the E-Myth, build systems, guys. If you want to sell, if you don't want to ever sell your site,
Still
doesn't
build
matter.
systems.
I mean, still build systems, but like if you actually enjoy working in your site and it doesn't depend on you, your systems need to be less stringent, I think.
My experience working with site owners is that those who don't have systems are always putting out fires because
Yeah,
people
yeah,
don't know what they're supposed to do because they come to you for every question. If you
right,
have a system in place, you go, this is what you do in this scenario. We've
right.
written it down, follow the rules. You
And you
don't have
can
to come to me with
empower
every question.
people. You can empower
Exactly.
your staff. Like we have a pre-screening system. I do it initially, then they learn the pattern.
Yep.
Now they're doing it. Shout out to
Exactly.
Grecia. She 11 p.m. at night, she's texting a patient on our app. Shout out to Patient Ace Recruitment. It scheduled him for today.
Yeah.
So that's because I empowered her and everyone else. Hey, if you see a lead come through, this is what you
So
do.
so let
This-
me tell you what your next phase looks like.
Okay.
Your next phase, and again, you may already be past this, but a lot of site sponsors, any small business, your first stage is getting things off your plate. The second stage, as you grow into probably around 25, 10, 15, 20, 25 people, is the people you're empowering don't want to be empowered. They'd rather talk to you and still get the question. You're like, I gave you the system,
No,
follow it.
then they won't last long, or they'll be demoted to like another role.
So you can say that, but you're going to find this anyways. Because I know people who've been doing this. I know companies that had 200 people that have this problem.
Oh
Uh,
man, I've never managed the company bigger more than like 15 staff
I
at one
I know a
time.
company that's 10 people large has this problem. I know a company that's 250 people large has this problem. The CEO in both cases, they're excellent CEOs, but that's why everyone goes, I don't want to figure this out. I want to go
I
talk to
mean,
this
I had
person.
this problem with two people at once,
Yeah,
and it's like that person is needs to go.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
You do everything you can, and hey, you're not wanting to take the initiative. Maybe there's something going on. Like,
It's not that they don't want to take initiative. You've always been the one to solve the problem. You're the only one who has the full picture.
Right.
and that's why they keep coming to you. But
Right.
it goes back to systems. But Dan, we are getting close to where we need to end. We never got
Maybe a
to AI.
cliffhanger. Maybe a cliffhanger for AI
Yeah,
for the next one, unless
that-
we get more good questions that are on the fraudulent angle.
and we'll always talk
Um,
about that as well, right?
we love fraud on this show.
Let's rephrase that. We don't like doing it. We like help solving it.
Correct. Yeah.
But
Uh,
yeah,
AI is getting into everything. I'll leave it that cliffhanger. There's a lot of startups
yeah.
using AI. I
We'll
do
talk about
think
some of the
it's
bullshit of the startups as well.
well, I
Like,
think it's a race to the bottom, honestly. I think it's rapidly being commoditized.
I'm not sure. I agree with the commodity part of it. I do think that there's going to be a value add, but I think it's going to become, for lack of a better term, and I think it's the same thing you're saying in a different way, but it will become a utility.
Yeah, that's the same thing as what I'm saying.
Yeah, which is why. But I think
A
there are two
utility
versions of
is
utilities.
price point, not value, right? A utility is the price is like the main variable. A value
Possibly,
is differentiating features.
I see a very clear difference between a Claude, a Chat GPT, and a Gemini.
Now,
Correct.
I think in 10 years you don't.
Did you hear about yesterday's news with Nvidia?
No, but I love their CEO. He said that you guys need to
I
have
like the
more
guy.
resiliency.
I really like him because number one of his recent statements, I really need to start going, but one of his recent statements was people think that being an entrepreneur is easy. It is to be
Yes,
successful. The
that
worst
clip.
you have to go through some hard things. So if you want to be successful, I wish you go through some hard things because that's what makes you successful.
Yeah, that clip needs to be watched by everyone who's thinking about being a site.
Yeah, yeah. But he came out yesterday and he said that here's a chip that is 1,000 times faster than what we have right now,
Wow,
and that's what we're bringing out. So
this is what it's gonna
AI
do.
right now is based on old technology, and they're about to just upgrade everyone
Well, on
to
that cliffhanger,
yeah.
go follow Darshan. I want to talk to you for 2 minutes before you gotta go.
Okay,
But go follow Darshan. His LinkedIn is underneath this video, and if you're listening, in the show notes. If you're already on his channel, you need to stay there. It's a good place to be. Thank you
thank
very
you,
much, Darshan.
thank you guys.
And get on X, man.
I'm getting back on X.
All right, thank you. Bye bye.